much for tuning in. My name is Carolina Jimenez. I'm the founder of CARA PR and also of Neuro. And today we are having a really exciting and transformative conversation with one of our newest community members, Sue Tyler. And Sue is from Highlands Strive Safe. She's the founder of Highlands Strive Safe. And today's conversation is really special because we're talking about something that can be life-changing for so many people, and that is learning to drive. Um, Gaining independence and feeling safe while also being supported and understood on the road is a game changer for so many people. And today we're looking at that through the neurodivergent lens because many people and many neurodivergent teens, adults, and families, getting a license isn't just always a simple or straightforward journey. So let's dive in. Sue, welcome. It is so lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have the talk today.
You're so welcome. So let's start at the very beginning. For all of the people who haven't come across Highlands Strive Safe yet, what can you tell us about who you are and how the business started?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll make it shorter. It began, I was a teacher for 20 years at TAFE, and after finishing my teaching career, my husband and my son and I both started Highlands Strive Safe. And we have been operating now for about 20 years in the Southern Highlands, most beautiful place in the world, and teaching so many learners from all ages, all backgrounds, and it's just been an amazing journey for us and continues to be. So yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. And it's interesting. We do have a lot of our team members who do come from that first education background, which makes the work that we do like so incredible. First, I suppose, having that communication on how to teach someone, but then also having that lived experience. So it's a really amazing toolkit that you've got there. So one of the things that I really love about your work is, sorry, I just lost where I was reading. So one of the things I love about your work is that you're addressing a very specific gap in the market, and the driving school space. What was it that you were seeing specifically in the driving school space that made you want to move from education?
Yeah, I think at the time we were looking for a career change ourselves, and we were teaching our children to drive. And of course, for any parent, it comes into focus at that point of road safety and everything that comes with it. And it was also a time where we had a friend. She had two of her grandchildren living with her. She didn't drive, and we were helping her get their hours up as well as our own kids. And I think it was just a natural fit for us. We loved watching people achieve their goals. They become mobile. It was really life-changing for them, and it was just a career choice that clicked in. It was a natural progression from teaching. So I think we just found a real niche in life. It was a great change.
That's so amazing. I suppose it just goes to show that, life isn't like one straight road. You can sort of pivot and find your calling, and that's so incredible that you found yourself in this, and you've helped so many people, which is really exciting. And so what is it that you were seeing that made you want to do things differently?
I think that we were seeing that there was a set curriculum for people learning to drive, and still is a very set curriculum in the logbooks, and it just wasn't a person-centered approach to teaching. Something that I've always had in my teaching career. We didn't just want people to pass the test. We wanted the industry to come along very professionally and change and be more person-centered and individual approach. And I think that was a huge gap within the industry.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense because I mean, no two people are the same, and it's kind of interesting that it was never something that was thought of before now. But there you go. And so another thing that I really love about Highlands Drive Safe is that it doesn't seem as though it's just about teaching someone to drive. Like it's really about the confidence and the independence, that emotional safety, and yeah, just really giving people that self confidence that they can do something that they have felt overwhelmed about previously or that they thought was out of reach for them. So, um, tell me about what's the heart behind Highlands Strive?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I think the heart behind Highlands Drive Safe is that we care about the learners. We often feel part of the family during this whole journey, and we always say that it's a partnership: the learner, the parents, and us. Together, we guide someone to achieve more than just a license. It's mobility, it's independence, employment, and really importantly, it's self-empowerment. For a lot of people, they haven't started with that belief in themselves, and for once possibly in their life they come across someone that believes that they can achieve that goal, and it's nice to walk alongside them to get to the end of that and have that outcome of mobility and everything else that comes with it.
That's so incredible. You really are changing people's lives. I can't even
Mm.
imagine what it would be like to just think that you weren't capable of being able to do something like this. I mean, the thing that we were talking about before is just I think so many people, grow up watching Disney and stuff like that, and they sort of have this expectation that they're just going to grow up and they're going to all be the same as on
Yeah,
Disney. Life's going to be easy. You get married and have kids, and like there's so many things that aren't in there about what the reality of life is.
that's
And yeah, it's such an important distinction because driving is technical and it is so deeply emotional. So, I'm loving how you've got like a whole sort of curriculum around building that confidence in their own decision making.
mm,
Um, and also teaching about the sensory awareness, then that you consider nervous system regulation, focus, timing, and trust. It like that's. I know when I learned how to drive, that I mean I am neurodivergent, but there was never anything about how I was feeling or anything like that. And so I imagine someone who is much more sensory um, to all of those things, just how much of a relief that is. That there's someone that actually takes that into consideration for them, not
mm.
just go, just come on, mate, just do
Yeah, just do it. Yeah. And it's not that easy for a neurodivergent person to just do it. They need
Right.
that support and guidance. And I think for all learners, it's just nice to know that it's not just a information session. It's more about guiding them through a lot of things that they can take into everyday life and change how they view things. So,
So amazing.
mm,
I really love that. And I think that obviously having the right person beside them can make the world of difference. And the fact that your business has been going for so long is just a testament as to how many people felt that Highlands Drive Safe has been that right person. And like that's just a credit to you and your team doing the change you did. Like, I'd be so proud if I were you. Like, I'm so proud for you.
Yeah. I think I get proud of the student. They'll often say to me, "Oh, thank you," and it's like, "Well, you did this. I just walked beside you and gave you the tools, but you actually did this." And I think that's a nicer way to see it for them, that they've actually achieved it themselves.
Yeah, what an incredible takeaway for them,
Mm.
to be like, yeah, I actually did do this. Um, and I feel like when it comes to like building your confidence, you have like one breakthrough like this, and then you just like, oh, I
Yep.
can take on something else that's a little bit more scary and a little bit more risky.
Yes.
So really helping them to build up that strength and that tolerance for, I suppose,
Mm.
risk and new environments and
Yeah.
scary types of activities. So that is
Yeah.
incredible. I would love to know,
Mm.
specifically when it comes to your neurodivergent drivers, what
Mm.
are some of the challenges that you see the neurodivergent learners facing when they're learning to drive, preparing for their license, doing the, online course, because there's so many bits of it, right? So like doing
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
one.
It's a complex thing to navigate through, not just for the neurodivergent, but it's also for the parents and the carers as well. But I think for many neurodivergent people, they have, we know from research that they have often put this off, learning, or maybe they've doubted their ability for a long time. For others, it's often a fear that surrounding driving, that they don't want to hurt someone else. And so I suppose for one of the most common barriers is that we find that they've got to find the right person to teach them in the way that they learn best. So someone that can adapt the methods that best suits a neurodivergent's way of processing. We know that through research that it can take up to 3 to 4 times longer to gain a license compared to a neurotypical learner. And often they'll go through multiple instructors, losing a lot of self-confidence in the process. And many instructors haven't been exposed to many neurodivergent learners, or haven't done training to be neuroaffirming. But it is changing. So I think in the last few years that's developing more and more, and driving instructors are wanting that training to help their clients, because they're seeing the struggles that they have. But I think that would be the biggest challenge that they have. Neurodivergents are very good at researching, so we tend to already know the process and everything, and just need someone to guide with us. But the hard part is to find the best fit to sit next to you and adapt the training to your way of processing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And so, do you often see anxiety and sensory overwhelm, or is it, how does that present in terms of
Mm.
some of the students that you've worked with previously?
Yes, I think that the short answer to that is yes, all the time in every lesson. And I will always say to students, just be yourself. There's nothing you can do that will shock me. I'm neurodivergent, so I said I understand that you may need to stim, you may need a break, you may need breathing, you may need whatever. I'm here to make sure you get what you need to be comfortable, and so you can learn, because we won't learn until we're comfortable and relaxed. So giving them that permission to be their authentic self in the car, and if they need a break, that's fine. That's not a negative in any way. Allows them to just relax into that space, and I think that's really important. Um, you know, we mask so much that the burnout is just so obvious at some point. And I think in the car, you're masking the fear, you're masking that you can do it, you're masking a lot of things, and the burnout happens quicker. So it's not unusual for someone to have a meltdown in the car, or just go into ADHD freeze or so many different ways that it will just present. But we're used to it and we understand it, and there's ways around it, and there's always breathing space within the car. So I always talk to them about learning strategies to help them remove those barriers. I call it their toolkit, and we can always add tools to the toolkit. So the whole process is about learning those strategies that they can apply to driving, but also to life as well. And that lets them navigate life a little bit easier.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. And in terms of the parents, carers, or even other instructors sometimes, have you seen a sort of a misunderstanding around the neurodivergent learner?
Yeah, look, I think parents have walked in that space with their child from the beginning, and it has never been an easy space to walk. So they have learnt what their child can and cannot do, and are very protective, and we understand that fully. But it can sometimes stand in the way of the learning process, especially in driving. And what we often say to a parent is, tell us what we need to know. Tell us what you know about your child, but then let us have them. Let us work with them, and don't rush them. They will work in their own pace. There should never be a deadline for a neurodivergent person. Once we're engaged in a process and we're confident and the ability, we grow very quickly into that space. But it's not about a rush. So just because they turn 17 doesn't mean they've got to sit the driving test. It may look very different for every person. So helping us in that way, not putting the normal tag on everything, what's normal. They're unique. So let them be unique, and let them be authentic, and work in the space with them.
Yeah, that's such a refreshing lens on it, because I suppose we do feel systematically and from society that sort of pressure of like, oh, you've got to get it right and you've got to do it,
Yeah.
by the time you're 18, and you've got to, and even like to get a job, or to be able to get yourself to sport, or to have a relationship, or whatever it is, there is already that pressure. So it's so nice that you are taking off that pressure
Yeah.
and just really help to filter out some of that, I suppose, unconscious bias or unconscious learning, I suppose,
Yeah.
that may or may not have been passed down or passed over through, family and other circumstances where potentially the parent was being a little bit overprotective. Perhaps they were, trying to be, I suppose it comes back to being overprotective, trying to lower the expectation.
Yeah.
Fear
Yeah.
of them not pleasing.
This world is not built for neurodivergent people. So it's a matter of changing the world we're in to make it suit. And I think for parents, it is a scary process, and you do want to protect your child from any of that harshness that the world will present. And I think driving is it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's like they're going to be out driving on their own. Are they going to be all right? Is people going to understand that they are processing differently out there? And so it is an extremely scary process for parents and carers, but they do get there. They do get there.
Yeah. I could only imagine. I mean, my daughter is 6 and said to me the other day, I think I'm ready to drive, and I just couldn't stop laughing. But I could only imagine, like, when she does get to that age, I am probably not going to sleep
Yeah.
based on thinking, is she making the right decisions? Did she remember to, like, double check before she pulls out, and all those types of things? And then when you know that your child has perhaps a different pattern of thinking that challenges that norm in terms of what steps are before you drive, or when you're driving, or make a decision. I could only imagine that would just send you into such a whirlwind of panic. So
Definitely.
really, you're not just helping the driver, you're really helping the family as well, because you're able to, give
Mm,
them that sort of knowledge about, they've got a toolkit, be okay. I imagine you would wear that hat a lot.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. A lot of support to parents. They have a hard task ahead of them, but with the right support, it just makes that journey a little bit easier, and they feel confident in themselves to take over the training once we get the student to a certain point and understanding things. So it is a transfer of that coordination with it. So yeah, it is good.
yeah. I do wonder, and you have sort of touched on this a little bit
Mm,
in the fact that one method doesn't work for everyone, and putting pressure on what the time expectation is really doesn't work. But what else have you seen from the, say, traditional learn to drive process that doesn't always work well for neurodivergent?
mm. I think expanding on the curriculum, I mean, I think the current curriculum, I suppose it's a little bit like school and everything, isn't it? It's a one size fits all, which most neurodivergent people know it doesn't work for a diverse neurotype. So, what works for one person won't work for another. And traditional research has always focused on how to train the learner to do things a specific way. And a set curriculum. And not surprisingly, this doesn't work. It's the research always comes back inconclusive. What we do need and what we're working on currently in Highlands Strive Safe and the things that we're doing that we'll talk about. We need dynamic, flexible trainers. It's not about changing the learner. It's about changing the trainer, and they need to be dynamic. They need to be able to adapt one concept or skill and teach it in multiple ways so that we can find the best fit for that unique individual and their way of processing. So I always joke, I can teach you 100 ways to reverse park a car, but only one of them is actually going to suit you. And
Yeah,
there is no right or wrong. It's just, are you, fitting into the marking criteria for a testing officer, but have you parked the car?
yeah,
And we haven't hit anything. So there's 101 ways to do that, but only one might suit that particular learner. So the trainer has to be the dynamic person, not the learner.
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah,
And I suppose a big part of your work there is that they have to be able to recognize when the way that they are trying to teach is not specifically suitable for that person.
correct.
Um,
There's a favourite quote that I always base my teaching on, and the quote comes from Estrada. He said, "If a child can't learn um, the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn."
that's so
And
important. Like,
it
yeah,
underpins all of our training, because it's not about the person has the um, disorder, or they're defective, or they're not being able to learn it. It's that we're not teaching them how they need to learn. And so
yeah,
it's changing that whole, flipping it around and saying, well, it's the trainer.
yeah, yeah. No,
Mm.
that's true. Yeah, and I suppose like for a traditional old school trainer or teacher, that would be a significant shift. But
It is, yeah.
yeah, like my mum was a school teacher when I was growing up, and it was very much like, no, this is the way it's done. So
Mm.
if you had been a driving instructor, say for the last 30, 40 years, and you're only just learning about neurodivergence, it would be a huge culture shock, I imagine.
Yeah, we just came back from New Zealand, training driving instructors, and the aha moment on their face when you start listing off what having a neurodivergent in the car with you is like, and they, oh yeah, 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 I've got students like that, but I didn't know they were neurodiverse. And it's like, no, well, they're masking, they're not telling you because they're not connecting with you. And for most neurodivergents listening to this, they'll go, yep, we've got to connect. And so it's finding that connection first. To connect and be able to open up and say, I'm neurodivergent, or I'm autistic, or I'm ADHD. This is how you can help me. And that's a very difficult process for neurodivergents. But for driving instructors, it's changing. We're doing the training. We're putting it out there for them. So now they can access training. They are keen to learn that. And I think that's a really amazing thing to watch, that an industry can adapt and change. And we've got some great driving instructors that have gone through the training and are absolutely modifying what they're doing now. So it's a process that's happening.
And so I'm curious as to how you build trust before getting into the driving lesson with your students, knowing that they're neurodivergent.
Yeah, I think getting in before we even do the lessons, it's really important to have the background, to have the knowledge. And it'll often start with a conversation with a parent that my son or daughter is a little bit special, or they're not the same as everyone else, or there's different ways parents will sort of navigate that conversation. And once we sort of break the ice and say, well, what is the diagnosis? And tell us about what are the triggers, how do they learn, what do they do really well? And it's having that whole learner background that then you can go, okay, well, they're visual learners. They might be non-verbal. They might, and all these different unique parts of being on the spectrum, that if we know that, we can then incorporate it into the training. So for a lot of the time, I will ask commonly to parents or to the student, what's your special interest? And for a lot of people, particularly on the autism spectrum, there's a absolute unique special interest that they'll have. And we can incorporate that into training. I mean, my students just laugh at me now when I start talking about Mario Kart and how to steer a car, and Dungeons and Dragons and Minecraft and all these things that they're interested in. But there's learning opportunities in how they connect with that type of training. So it's finding the connection in how they're processing that.
Incredible.
Mm.
Wow, you've really spent so much time just putting the pieces together, and I'm just so excited for this to be more available to people, and for people to know that actually, because as we've said lots of times now, that for neurodivergent people, getting a license is about so much more than just driving. It can mean the difference between having independence and not. Being able to work and earn money, being able to enjoy a social life somewhat on your own terms, going and furthering your education, not being reliant on parents or friends, and building that connection as well. So it's a really incredible life skill that I think a lot of people have taken for granted for a very long time. And for a parent who is still working to advocate for their young person, it's just such a relief, I imagine, for them to know that there is a way, and that there's a person that they can trust that will be able to help their son or daughter get the results they need to give them that extra guidance and support in a way that makes sense for them, so that they can have that extra tick in terms of all of the things that it means to be another part of society, to be like a teenager like the rest of their teenage friends, or young adults, because it's a huge identity thing. Like, I remember getting my first car and just being like thinking,
Yeah. It's important. It's a milestone, and they want to achieve it just like everybody else. It just may be a different time frame for them, but it's achievable.
Yeah, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So what have you seen change in learners once they start building that confidence behind the wheel?
What we see change in them, I think it's the confidence. It's they take the lessons into other parts of their life. You see someone that might not have wanted to leave the safety of their home. They didn't socialize. They didn't want to go out. They weren't employed, and really life, was very sheltered at that point for them. And then you see them build this confidence, and it's like, oh, I can do this, and one little step at a time. So it's very scaffolded. So they're achieving little goals that make up the big goal. And when they do get to that big goal, the smile on their face says it all. It's more than a smile. It's the beaming eyes. It's the confidence. It's the I can do this. And then you'll hear back from them, and they'll say, well, I've got a job and I'm doing this, this, and this. And mum and dad are like, I haven't seen them for months because they're out driving all the time. And it's just a different world now. And I think that, just goes to show that given the right strategies and tools, we have to assume competence in everybody until we find the gaps that we need to help them with. So it's not about that they never will be able to do it. It's about what do you need to get to that goal. So it is nice to see them blossom, I suppose, is the word, isn't it? They just bloom out there in society and be themselves.
That is so good. So that's really the part that matters the most, isn't it? It's not just they took the test, it's that they started to believe that they were capable. They've taken life with both their hands and they're making it work for them, which I think as a parent is just like the absolute definition of what we just want them to
It
be
is,
happy
yeah.
and to live a fulfilled life where they can be safe and be normal in doing whatever it is that they want to do, like we just want them to be
Yeah.
accepted and loved and honoured in all of their authenticness.
That's right.
So I imagine over the years you would have had so many like families that have stayed with you. I'd love to know one of your favourite stories in terms of
It is hard to pinpoint one because they're all so unique. But the one that really sits in my mind, I had a mum call from Lithgow, and that's a long way from the Southern Highlands. And she was at wit's end. She just was losing it. She just said, I don't know where else to go. And she said, I'd heard about you. And a friend of a friend of a friend said, you've got to take him down. And he was in his mid-20s, autistic, and absolutely lovely guy. And he had been learning he'd renewed his license, so it was probably over 6 years that he was doing this journey. And he'd gone through so many driving instructors. He'd failed the test multiple times. It was the last straw. It was like, I'm not going to do this. I'll never drive in my life. And he'd had a lot of negative things from a couple of the driving instructors saying that you shouldn't be driving, you aren't capable of it, and very negative terminology towards him that, obviously chipped away at his self-confidence. And so mum drove him down for a month every Saturday from Lithgow. They'd have their McDonald's breakfast before they came to me, and I'd take him out for 2 hours, and we were running tests, and he was very capable. He knew what he was doing. He had a little bit of a barrier on, he'd built a resistant attitude to the whole testing process. So we had to sort of break that down a little bit. And once I decoded what the testing officers really wanted for him, it was that aha moment for him. He just went, I didn't understand that. No one told me that's what they needed. And so it was a very aha moment. And he went in, first attempt, got his license. And his mum updates me every so often, you know, I get a photo of this grinning thing, but I got this photo through of this absolutely beaming face. And you could see on his face that he restored so much into himself. And his mum basically tells me all the time that he's now working full time. He is never home. He's got so much in his life, and he's got a girlfriend. So life with him is so different from that very. He was so timid and withdrawn when I first met him, and just to see the difference, he just always stays with me, because it was such an amazing journey for him to commit to coming down a 2-hour drive either way just to have driving lessons and run that test. And so, yeah, absolutely amazing. But for all of them, there's a story behind them that you know, it really is heartfelt to see the changes in their life. We love it.
Yeah, oh my God, it makes me want to cry. It's so like, oh, so tell me then, like, what does it mean to you personally, seeing these women reach that milestone? Like, because for me, I almost feel like I could cry. It's just so beautiful. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's
For
really
me, as an autistic ADHD person myself, it just reinforces to me what I already know about neurodivergent people, that we're not defective. We're not. We just process it differently. We need to remove the barriers. We need to allow ourselves to shine in that authentic self and to be who we are and be comfortable with it. And we're amazing. We are absolutely amazing people. And we've got a place here in society, and we have a lot to give to society. But we need those barriers to be broken down and allow us to process in a way that we're comfortable. So it is really important for neurodivergent people to understand that we need to take control of that, and not let others tell us what we should and shouldn't be. We know what we should be. We just need the assistance. And I was talking to a parent this week, and she was saying, you know, that it's very difficult. And I said, well, look, you've got to look at it a different way. If I came into a room in a wheelchair, people would put a ramp down for me. Just because I walk into a room and I'm autistic and you can't see that doesn't mean I don't need the same accommodations to make the world work for me. It's a hidden disability. But I don't even see it as a disability. I see it as just put the ramp down for me, and I can do what you're asking me to do. So it's finding those techniques and strategies to help them do that.
and I was literally having a brainstorm with my user experience designer who is also autistic, ADHD, and a few other things. And we were literally just talking about this the other day, about how workplaces need to work harder to be more inclusive and to give people tools. And the fact that you wouldn't say to a person with a wheelchair, "Oh no, sorry, go take the
Yeah.
stairs." Like, so why would it even be considered somewhat acceptable for somebody else who has some other type of need to not provide that? And that's
Yeah.
accessibility, right? It's a necessary tool. And you know, I guess that's the reason why I'm just like so proud and passionate about the work that we're doing and connecting with people like yourselves, bringing them into Team Neuro Awesome and building that community of people that really need it and who have just been, you know, forgotten or invisible up until this point in time. It's just the work matters so much. It's difference that we make to people's lives is just so worth it.
Yeah.
Yay!
It's a great thing the whole team's doing. It's needed, and it just gives that safe space for everyone. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I get such a high from it. I mean, it's just incredible. So, let me see, we're nearly through all the questions from our interview. So, would you have a special message for parents or carers who want to support their young person but don't want to add on that extra pressure?
Yeah, I think it's what we were saying before. All neurodivergent people will do things in their own time frame. The pressure will come from the world trying to fit us into the supposedly normal realm, knowing that we're unique, knowing that we're special in our own way. And as I said, just because we turn 17 doesn't mean we've got to do that driving test. And it doesn't mean we're lazy. People will often say, oh, but they're lazy. And you go, no, they're not lazy. They're having sensory issues, or the world is just a little bit too much at that point for them. And they're doing what they need to survive in that space. But looking at it through that neurodivergent lens rather than a judgmental lens of, what we're not doing, what do we need to get to that. So I think for parents and carers, and they best know their children, but letting them do it in their own time frame is so important, and allowing that space.
Yeah, that's such an important message because the journey might look different. And it might take a completely different pace or approach, but it doesn't mean that it's so not giving up, not losing hope, just
Yeah.
allowing each step to give you learning. If you try one thing and it doesn't work that way, then that's one thing you can cross off, and then you can try a different way. So now, as we're coming to the close of the interview, I want to know about the book because
Yeah.
it feels like that is such an exciting and meaningful extension of the work that you're already doing. So can you tell us more about your book that is coming up?
Yeah, it's a sort of a natural extension of. We've got the training course for the driving instructors, and they have their own book and work through it. So the natural extension of that is, well, what's there for parents and carers and supervisors of neurodivergent people? So the book is basically driving on the spectrum, and it covers a lot of different things, from dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD, autism, all of the neurospicy stuff. But it's basically aimed to the learner and the supervisor to help them guide through the basic core parts of learning to drive, and what sort of strategies you can put in place to make it easier and more neurodivergent. So it's really taking what we do in the car and putting a self-help manual together for the supervisor and learner to work through. So we're really excited about that. I think it's a natural part of just going further from just the driving instructors. Now it's helping the parents to do that, and it's come from a lot of parents saying, how can we take you home? And that sort of comment. So it's this is the way you take us home. So we're putting it all together.
So incredible. And so, if I was a driving instructor right now, how do I go about learning from you in terms of being a better instructor? So, if you did the training in New Zealand, have you got training in New South Wales?
No, we do lectures at all the governing bodies, like the driver training and everything. But we also have an online course for them to do. So they can do an online course with us, and they can go to our neurodiversity driver training webpage and basically just do that over a few weeks. And they're doing training and taking it away, working with it, coming back, and we're going through all the different styles of neurodivergency and how do we best support that person. And it's really great. I mean, the last group we had about 10 driving instructors in it, and we always go over time, but the conversations of what are some examples, what are some tools, and we're working through real life examples with those instructors and saying, well, this is your case study, let's work through how can we best train that person. And so it's a fantastic space for professional development for them. But we also go to all the conferences and lecture to like the New South Wales Driver Training Association, the New Zealand Driver Training Association, and we're teaching them there on the spot, and the comments always come back, I didn't know we could do this. I didn't know we could change this and that. And it's really, really great to get the practical stuff for them. That's what they're really wanting, is how do I best modify what I'm doing to make my student achieve the goals.
Yeah. That's so it's just such a vital part of I suppose evolving as humans and as drivers and as a society and community. Just having those tools, not just expecting that the driver to try hard or whatever, but for the instructors to know what the signs are and then have that practical strategies on how to implement that in the car. That's really interesting and amazing work that you're lecturing that all over. I'm really excited. So do we know when the book will be landing?
Yes, I'll have to get myself finished on that one. Hopefully beginning of next year. That's the aim for it. So the sooner the better, I think. So we're working hard on that one to bring it together.
Amazing. And so the book will be the learner drivers, parents, carers, instructors. Correct. And will there be different versions, or there'll be like one which has the sorts of truths that any of them can apply?
We're starting with the core skills, so that we can just empower the parents and the learners to start. I think the hard part is the starting part of actually getting them in a car and doing it. So if we can get them to that process, then we can go with more training after that. But I think first things first, we'll get the basics out and get them driving and show them that there is a path forward with it, and it's a positive one. So we're really excited to get it out there. But it will be worldwide. So it'll be a very generic book. Obviously, different driving rules and regulations in different countries. So it's more looking at the core skills rather than the road rules of each country. So it's a good start. It's a really good start.
Yeah, no, it sounds really exciting. Evaluating those principles and getting those strategies into place. I love that. So beyond the book, is there anything else that is coming to the Highlands driving that Highlands Drive Safe is bringing to the community? What else have you got that you're working on?
What are we planning? Well, we're looking really excited to work with Neuro Awesome. So we are looking at doing workshops for parents and learners, and in a safe neuro friendly space, and just so that we can informally talk about how do we start, where do we go from here, and that first support. So that, I think, we'll have to watch the Neuro Awesome space dates and the events. So that's a really, really exciting. And I think if it's just an informal thing, it'll be great for people to come along and just talk about where they are in the journey and what's holding them back, and maybe we can get them going with it. Obviously, the book launch will be great. We'll be looking for that. And currently, I'm just completing my master's just to add a little bit more work on top of it. But the research we'll be doing next year will be looking at how do we develop a curriculum for the driving instructors. Although we've got the base one at the moment, we need to do the research and then get it incorporated into the actual training of new driving instructors. So like a training package. So that is an exciting space for the industry to really formalise neurodiverse learners into the curriculum, because it's not there at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is incredible. So we've got workshops, school partnerships. Any school partnerships coming up in terms of how you're facilitating some of your learning and some of your information for parents, students, etc.?
Yeah, we coordinate and run the Rotary U-Turn the Wheel road safety program every year, and that's where all the high schools in the Southern Highlands come in and do the road safety program. And we touch on it a bit in there, but we'd like to do a little bit more direct work with the schools. So that's obviously that space we need to open up. And I think that would be great if we can get in and talk to the students and break some of those barriers down with them and help them sort of achieve that goal. So definitely partnerships, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Well, look, we've covered so many things today. And at Neuro Awesome, we talk about creating these spaces where neurodivergent people don't have to mask, they don't have to shrink, and they don't have to feel like it's too hard, that they can come as they are. And the work that you're doing truly connects with that. And, I was so excited when you reached out to me initially via Facebook about the work that we're doing and how we could collaborate. So it's just really exciting that you've been on your path doing all the wonderful things there, and now we can come together and very necessary change across multiple industries, really, in making sure that our friends, family members, young people who are neurodivergent get to live a fuller and richer existence that is less judgmental and less filled with this unconscious bias that there's something wrong with being neurodivergent, because so many of us have it and have it as a part of our personality, even if you're not, flamboyant or wild in some way or another.
We're all different.
There's something to celebrate, because how boring life would be if we weren't different. So I'm just really excited. And before we wrap up, the last question I wanted to ask you was, what is one myth about neurodivergent drivers that you would love to challenge?
I think the big myth is that neurodivergent doesn't mean that we have a low IQ. Often you'll hear that in the background of conversations that, they're special, they've got low IQ. And I would love to challenge that, because we are some of the most highly creative, visual, strategic thinkers on this planet. And once we learn how to decode the neurotypical ways, watch out, because there's no stopping us. And I think that's just where we are. It's not always about intelligence level. We are very different in the way we process, and it's just letting us find that path in a unique way.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. Every person that I work with in Neuro Awesome has got multiple degrees. They've got all these amazing stories about you, even yourself, you autistic, ADHD, you're doing a psychology degree, and at the same time you're writing this book, and you're going over to New Zealand and teaching
Yeah.
people how to, like, you're achieving so many things. And the same can be said for the other members of Neuro Awesome. Like, they're high achieving, highly passionate and like very astute in so many different areas. It's never just one thing. And I think, when we come across people like you, it's kind of like that reminder for people or parents and young people who are neurodivergent, that being different is not a bad thing. It's an incredible thing. There's so
Mm.
many incredible gifts that come with it.
Yeah.
And even though it can be really challenging at times, just to stick with it, because it's nothing is beyond reach. Like, you can live an incredible life. It doesn't have to be, you probably shouldn't even really want for it to be the same as what the normal people
Mm.
in their lives, because I feel like you're just capable of so much more because you have that neurodivergent brain.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. So, thank you so much, Sue. This has just been such a beautiful and important conversation. And thank you for the work that you're doing through Highlands Strive Safe. Not only teaching people to drive, but helping them to feel capable and safe, respected, understood, and giving them that freedom to own their independence.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation.
I've loved it so much. And so, for anyone who's listening who's neurodivergent, has a neurodivergent young person, or knows someone who is nervous about learning to drive, please reach out to Sue Tyler at Highlands Strive Safe. And of course, keep an eye out for Sue's book and upcoming projects, because as we have discussed, this is some very much needed work. And now that Sue is a part of Team Neuro Awesome, we'll continue to build on our offerings in the community for our neurodivergent community here in the Southern Highlands, and hopefully ripple effect it across other locations. So, eyes peeled. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an incredible day, everyone. See you
Bye,
later.
everyone.